Sending the invitation once again. I've sent it once again. Hi, good evening.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me.
Thanks a lot for coming over.
My pleasure.
Great to have you here. Just wanted to take, with your permission, a minute. There are a lot of viewers we have today. It's a Friday evening, and I think a lot of people would want to hear from you about your writing craft and about everything. First, let me say a few words about you. So Kiran is a writer, she's a novelist, she's based in Mumbai, and she was a journalist at the Asian Age, the Times of India, features editor at the Cosmopolitan, India cultural lead and trend spotter at Gartner. She was shortlisted, and there's a huge list out there, really, of the awards and the shortlists of literary contribution, and so
Please don't read all that.
so much there. Yeah, and some of the books that she's already written: A Reluctant Detective, Once Upon a Crush, All Aboard, Karmic Kids, A Boy's Guide to Growing Up. Wow! So it actually spans non-fiction, fiction, within fiction into so many different genres. How do you manage? Like the last one, I guess, was the Kitty Party Murder, which is possibly a cozy mystery. Am I right?
It's a more of a comic mystery, and that was not the last. After that, there is More Things in Heaven and Earth, which is literary noir. So
Okay.
there's a book that's come out after the Kitty Party Murder.
Okay. Okay. Nice. So the question was, how do you really manage? Like it's dabbling into so many. I know you've been very versatile because also possibly because of your background into journalism and creative writing, and you've been, I think, English honors and student of English literature. So you've been creative and you've been very versatile. But still, it's like really dabbling into so many different genres and so many different kinds of work, all at this age.
I think you answered the question, to be honest. It is the journalistic background. It is the fact that, I did do all kinds of reportage and feature writing, from business reporting to crime reporting, to writing features, to writing on women's issues, to writing on entertainment and editing the entertainment supplement at the Times of India, back when it was called the Sunday Review. Also, I think we read very disparate genres as readers. So my
Right.
reading has spanned across everything. All of us do. It's not something that's unique to me. And I've read everything from humor to fantasy to literary fiction to noir to thriller. Thriller is something that I'm still to get a grip on when it comes to my writing. But I think it all reflects in your writing. Your reading somehow distills and it comes down into your writing. I'm sure you experience the same as a writer yourself.
I know, I know. So, and it's been exhilarating. It's really the volume of work you already have. And I'm sure the number of, I think possibly you're writing 4 novels at once. WIP would be pretty big and doing a lot of work together. Also getting into, are you also getting into writing for serials and all of that? I'm sure it is coming up soon.
Uh, I tried. Let me be very honest. I tried writing for television. Not a world
Right.
that works for me. It's a very different world, and I chose to stay away. It takes a different kind of it takes guts of steel to write for television, I would say, and hats off to television and screen. Hats off to those who can do it. There's immense uncertainty. The timings are really very odd, to say the least. Plus, you could put your heart and soul and hours and years into the project, and suddenly at the very last minute, it just gets pulled. The rug gets pulled off from under your feet. So I leave that to the people who have the nerves to do that. I'll sit on the
Sure.
sideline and say, "This is my book. If you want to adapt it, please go ahead. I'll look over the final
Right.
script," but that's about it.
I know where you're coming from, and I understand completely. So, most of your fans and readers out there, they tell us that you have a great sense of humor. I think Madhuri Banerjee here, she's mentioning that also in the
Oh,
text comment section. So, which we also are aware of. So, how did it come? We are losing Kiran. Hello. I think the connection is slightly slow. We've lost her for a moment. I'll have to invite her again. Hi, we lost you for a moment there. And while we were talking about comedy and your humor, so there are a lot of, I think, your readers and fans who are already writing, scribbling their notes for me to ask you relevant questions. So how did it come to you? Like what we understand is most of the Indians typically like humor is a Western concept. Indians aren't very humorous, and sometimes when we wish to become humorous, we go a little too far in trying to do that. But you are genuinely humorous, and you have something called the British wit. So, does it come innately to you, or you've managed to grow it within you?
I don't know if it has come innately to me, but nothing comes innately when it comes to writing. You sort of stand on the shoulders of giants. So I would put it completely to P.G. Wodehouse, Terry Pratchett, and Richmal Crompton, and all the British humor writing that I've read over the years for,
Right.
for what I have. They say it's a voice, but I think it's a voice that is the pastiche of all their voices. And I derive heavily from them. I know some of my sentences run into paragraphs like Plum Woodhouse did, and that's a failing I need to address in these times
Right.
of brevity. So, yeah, I think you read a lot, and then when you write, that reflects in your writing. And Madhuri is asking a lot of questions.
Yeah, and I think she's been going on. So she earlier to this, she asked about which book of yours would you want to get uh, adapted for a serial or a TV show, and after this, the next mom book from you about teenagers.
No, Madhuri, I'm not allowed to write about the teenager, though I would have loved to. I would probably, alienate him for life. And, he's going to plan my retirement home, so I have to be nice to him now. Uh, uh, which book would I love to be adapted to its series? My heart is with The Face at the Window and More Things in Heaven and Earth. They're beautifully dark, noir, scary. There's a lot of atmosphere, but I think what people show more interest is the funny books, the Reluctant Detective, the Kitty Patty Murder.
Okay.
That's the feel I get from the market and from people who have been sort of looking for the options and stuff like that. So that's how it is. The one
So does
close.
your
Pardon me.
sorry, sorry, please go ahead.
So it's there's a dissonance between what I really like and what the market likes.
That's always there. So in the US, there is a concept of writing to market, and a lot of authors are doing it currently. And it's also, as you were saying, brevity. Today, it's the in thing, and you need to be very clear and concise in what you are going to write because people don't have time. They're always on their. There are so many things to take them away from your book. So you really to be able to write to the market, to your real fans, basically, the things that they wish to read. And while you've written this Kitty Party Murder, I had a question on that. Like, does it have cats and dogs also? Like, it's quite often times happening in the US and UK. We are seeing a lot of cozy mysteries coming up and a lot of those things with cats also there as characters.
No, there is unfortunately no cats in the book, but there is a very excitable dog in it, a little
Okay.
Pomeranian. I keep forgetting how you say it. And
Right.
she goes around nipping everybody's ankles, and her owner and she resemble each other. There's a
Wow.
thing where you start looking like your pet after a few years. So that happens.
Oh, God.
She's called Silky, and she is the favorite playmate of my protagonist's son, who's a 6-year-old.
Wow. Wow. So that's nice to hear. So, and like the concept of being able to kind of look exactly like your pet over a period of time, because you get to become so fond of each other. You start maybe possibly, I don't know whether they start thinking like each other or not, but at least they start looking like one another. So that's really, and I have read a couple of cozy mysteries, some of the authors in the US, and it's actually going there. So they have started uh, talking about how cats and dogs react to various things that are happening, and in fact, cats possibly also helping the woman sleuth to go and figure out the murderer in a series. So those things are happening now. We are getting very creative in that direction. So possibly, I don't think Indian authors have done it yet, but do you see it coming?
Uh, there are or there are books. I think there's Manjari Prabhu who writes wonderful detective mysteries, and she's a dog lover herself. So I'm sure Manjari would definitely love to have a pet or an animal in her books and help them be active participants in. I mean, we've had a tradition of this kingship, and we've had like dogs sending out taking love notes in movies and getting the together, and we've had
Right.
pigeons going, so we've always had pets being a helping hand. So I'm sure our books will do the same sooner or later.
Yeah, I'm sure things are changing, and I think Indian authors have also become very creative, and a lot of good thrillers now coming out in India. So a lot of good work happening. I keep telling readers, the Indian readers, while we are so happy reading the American and the English books, please also give some love to the Indian authors. They are also doing a lot of effort, creating a lot of good work, good literature. So it needs more love coming in from the readers. And if you see, I was actually talking to a couple of marketers in the US, and they had to say that it's very difficult, very jarring at times, and also weird to read so many Indian names in a. So we are not very easily taken to Indian books or maybe Japanese books. It's not so easy for us to adapt ourselves to be able to read such weird names of locations and all of that. While Indians are so happily reading so much of British and American stuff. So why don't they also take to a little more of, Lucknow, or a little more of Ranchi for that matter? What are your thoughts on that?
I would say, Madhuri, you're a darling. Sorry, let me just respond to Madhuri because she's such a sweetheart and she's asking me questions.
So I'll invite Madhuri next time.
You must. She's like a kick-ass writer who has written bestsellers on bestsellers. And
Right,
yeah, Madhuri, kya bolu? Anyway, uh, my thoughts on whether we should adapt and make things easier for the international writers. We've seen a whole slew of them where you get khichdi explained as a lentil soup of whatever, but that mainly comes out of the MFA school of writing, which is writing
right,
towards the male gaze, and it's a very post-colonial kind of
right,
aesthetic that they bring to their work. But I think
right.
real gritty raw writing, if you're
Yeah,
appealing to something that is universal and something that cuts across all society, gender,
right,
class, cultural barriers, if you're talking about real honest stories, you don't need to
right.
explain them. You don't need to make it so universal that the local gets diluted. You keep
Sure.
it as authentically real and true as it is. If somebody is into your story, I mean, how much we read stories from African writers, we
Right,
read stories from Afghan writers, we read stories from Turkish writers, from Polish writers. We
right.
go to the Google and we look up stuff that we don't understand at that point of time. If a book can manage to grip you, then that's the beauty and the magic of your writing. And if you are going to leave a book because the names are forgettable and unpronounceable and this is too complicated, then perhaps that book is not for you. So I would say readers choose their books according to their tastes, and if a certain reader doesn't like a book, then it's not according to their taste. They should stick to kind of the books that they enjoy. It is not for the writer to make your dilute your work so much that it is, what do I say, when you try to be universal, then you are
Mhm.
nothing to nobody instead of something to everybody.
I agree with you. So you have to find your readers, and possibly you're happy writing for them. You
Absolutely.
can't write for everyone on this universe. So you have to find your set of readers, and you have to make them happy, make them laugh, make them cry, along with your characters, the way they are being developed. And basically, see, Kiran, I wanted to understand from you, like you are so versatile, and you are such an accomplished author. So how did it happen? Like, is it a 10-year effort? Is it a 20-year effort? When did you start writing? And was it always in you, or you found it somehow? So being an English language student always helps. But eventually, like, was it something you always wanted to do, or it happened to you?
So my mother has in her cupboard some notebooks with horrible short stories that I've written when I was 5 or 6, and some short stories which I've written when I was older in college, and some terrible poems. I'm sure she can blackmail me sometime by threatening to get them published. And she had this grandiose idea that my daughter will become an author sometime. So every year, you know, the way mothers are, I mean, we saw that Nobel Prize physics, uh, the Nobel Prize winner who said his mother wanted him to win a Nobel Prize in physics, and she's so wasn't happy with his Nobel Prize in literature or something like that. And so my mother's the same. Every year she would say, "When's a book coming out?" And I'm like, "I know, I'm too busy, too important right now. I'm working at the Times of India. I'm working at the Cosmopolitan. I'm doing this. I'm having a baby. I'm like setting up a business. Like I'm working with an international research firm, and I don't have the time." And suddenly, when I was around to hit 40, she said, "So are you finally planning to write your book or not?" And at that point, it sort of dawned on me that, look, it's 40s already here. I better get down to writing the book. So I had been blogging. Of course, my entire career was based on writing and, telling
Right.
stories in different formats. Even my research was trend spotting and cultural lead. So I was looking
Okay.
for, I was not doing qual research in the way you generally see qual research. It was searching for cultural trends and social cultural trends, and, making out reports on that. So that was also a way of writing and analyzing stuff, social trends. So the blogging was happening, and that had given me writing riyas, I think,
Okay.
and helped me build my voice, because I would blog religiously for at least 5 to 10 minutes, if not every day,
Okay.
every alternate day. And when I was ready, I was ready. I wrote my first book. I wrote the first 3 chapters or so. There were 2 very dear friends who sat on my head and said, "Write your book." That's one is Priyanka Chaturvedi. I'm very proud to be a friend. She's now a Rajya Sabha MP.
Yeah.
Another is Parul Sharma. She is also a dear friend, published author, now qualitative research. She set up her own firm. They would say like 500 words. I want to see your 500 words. So I wrote those 3 chapters. Parul very kindly introduced me to her editor, and I tremblingly sent the 3 chapters off. And Dipti Talwar at Westland said, "I love it. Please send me the rest of the book." I had not written the rest of the book.
Okay.
And I scrambled and wrote the rest of the book in an embarrassingly short time. She loved it. And that's how it was. But it was the writing muscle of 40 years, I would say. Not maybe
Sure.
maybe 35 years. I didn't start writing at 5 by the time I was 5.
Right. Well, it's absolutely amazing journey, and like I think readers are proud of you, of your work. There are so many things you've given to people uh, generally, and Kiran, so how do you see the trends? Like you were a qual researcher, and you've always done trend spotting, you said. So, what are the trends going ahead for young writers, authors coming into business? Nowadays, we don't talk about just being an author. We talk about being entrepreneurs. So, you have to earn while you write. So, what is your advice to the youngsters who are coming in? Should they actually get into, like, you've done so much, you've done journalism, you've done creative writing, you've done so many stuff also to keep earning while you're possibly starting to write or while you are blogging. what do you really wish to kind of say to the guys coming in now? Should they turn to being real entrepreneurs at the beginning of the career rather than getting into working somewhere else? Or the place where we are in today, and with so much of social media and all of that, they should also start working and simultaneously maybe start writing?
See, to be very honest, unless you are one of the top 5 or 6 authors in India, you are not going to make enough to sustain yourself financially. And advances are ridiculous at times. Royalties come in twice a year. So what do? You keep your bread and butter job, is what I tell everyone. Right on the side, keep your bread and butter job. Do what it takes to make sure that you have your bills paid and your roof over your head. Um, I mean, I speak from a place of privilege, and I'm very grateful for that, that I don't really have to worry about the bread and butter part of it now. Uh, After all these years, of course, you're once fairly comfortably placed. But for those who are starting out, please don't get any, romantic notions of chucking it all up and becoming a full-time writer. Not yet. Not yet, until you can really sustain yourself, or you have enough money in your bank to sustain yourself for 2 years, 3 years, while you take that sabbatical and write a book. And even Harper Lee had to be helped out by her friends to, take that year off from work to write To Catch a Mockingbird. So be sensible about it. Social media, being an entrepreneur, building your author brand is all too good and all too wonderful and it's all too glamorous, but I would say that is all secondary. The first thing is to write a damn good book. Focus
Sure.
on the art and craft of it. I think people are tending to get this the other way around, that they need to build their author brand, that they need to, pump up their social media platforms, and they need to do all that. All that is meaningless if your book is going to be discarded by a reader at the third page or the fourth page.
Sure.
The best publicity that you cannot buy is word of mouth. So focus on writing a book that will get you word of mouth. Some of my books have managed to do that. Some, very honestly, have not managed to do that. And it's a constant process. One is learning. Some of my books, which you pour your heart and soul into your book, and you think everybody will rave about it, it doesn't get any buzz. Something you just write or you toss off in a few months, and it's like everyone loves it. So you don't really know what's going to appeal to a reader. It's much like the movies. You don't really know what's going to click and what's not going to click. But make sure that whatever you put out, it's a damn good product. That having said that, I think building a personal brand is very important these days. I'm terrible at it, but I see a lot of young authors doing that very well. They've got their websites planned out, they've got their appearances, they've got their author pictures and everything. And I think that's wonderful, to be so focused and so professional about yourself as a brand. And it always helps, because yes, being an author may not pay much, but being a speaker and doing professional talks and all does pay a lot. So that's
Sure.
how you can leverage your author brand going forward, especially if you're in the space of non-fiction. For us fiction writers, we are doomed to be poor. So, but non-fiction, if you have expertise on a certain topic and you position yourself as a thought leader in that space, definitely,
Right.
that is how you should look. And there are much better experts than I am to tell you how to go about that.
Sure. So nonfiction, yes. So I see a lot of authors nowadays, and they're really thought leaders, possibly maybe CEOs and stuff in their own industries, having worked 25 years in a particular domain, and they get published, and they are suddenly, Wall Street Journal name or a US Today name, and they from there, I think they really get picked up by the media and by everyone, and they start getting a lot of these assignments, which is from where possibly then you can become a proper entrepreneur. Otherwise, as you're rightly saying, maybe top 5, top 7 in India might be earning from this as a bread and butter business, but others will still have to do their day jobs. So while that's where I guess the two markets are different, and we still have to keep pushing the envelope to grow and to create a brand and to get a fan following. I wouldn't say fans because authors don't really have fans, they have readers. Yeah. So, and readers might, as you rightly said, some work they would suddenly pick up and it will get a word of mouth. So, which is that particular book that got really big because of the word of mouth thing? Which one do you feel you did not do much about it, you did not promote it too much, but it just picked up the fancy of readers?
Mm, I think All Aboard did very well. It was a nice little love story. Uh, it went, and The Face at the Window is a book that consistently keeps getting mentioned everywhere over and over again. It's been on, it's been on Monster Complex, it's been on Book Riot, it's been on many international sites. As It's been on lists with the books like The Vegetarian and The Ring as South Asian
Mhm.
horror. It's been on some of the top lists around the world. In India, I don't see it talked about so much, but internationally, it's in some of the best libraries in the world. It's at the Library of Congress. It's at so many of Columbia University Library. It's gone all over the place. It's The Face
Okay,
at the Window, and I think it's purely on the word of mouth of the book because I didn't have any great marketing buzz
sure.
plan or anything for it.
And which is that one book which is the closest to your heart? The one where possibly you wrote and you burnt midnight oil and you put in your heart and soul.
It's that cliche, एक माँ के इतने बच्चे, and how do you ask which one?
Thankfully.
So what do I say? I would say my three noir books are very dear to me. That's Missing,
Okay.
Presumed Dead, The Face at the Window, and now More Things in Heaven and Earth, which is I honestly feel More Things in Heaven and Earth is my best work yet. I'm sure there'll be better work coming, but I like to think it was out last year in the thick of the pandemic, so it's not really got the kind of love that I hoped it would get. But but I think it's my best writing yet. Yeah.
So, Kiran, so when we get to the subject of writing itself, and have you, like in your journey from the beginning till today, do you feel you've really written about particular characters that you were fascinated about yourself, or you completely created them out of nowhere and you've possibly not met that kind of a character in your real life, and you've done real good job creating that character? Is there any one character which you would like to mention?
Mm, so I may not have met a character, but I may have heard of a character. For instance, Julia McNally at in The Face at the Window. She's 78 years old. She's a retired Anglo-Indian school teacher. I've never met her, but my mother taught at a boarding school in Missouri, and she would tell me about a similar character uh, who, and they stay in your head, these stories about
Right.
people from past. And Missing Presumed Dead came about from a woman who went missing. I mean, she left home and went away. I used to play with her kids. And that sort of, I think there was some kind of subconscious psychological trauma for me back then. And how could the mother go away and leave these children, and she went away. I don't know. We were told she went away with another man. I don't know what it was. We don't know. I was very young at that point, maybe 4 or 5. But that
Okay.
stuck in my head and became Aisha Thakur of Missing Presumed Dead. So, I can actually now, when I think about it, pick up from where these women have come from in my head and why they've stayed there. And even Kamala Malik in More Things in Heaven and Earth. I don't think there was one person, but there was a combination of people. Somebody who was widowed very young, and another person who was widowed young and then became sort of inherited, got her husband's wealth, and then there was this tussle for the property between her and her husband's family. So I think those things played out, and you try to explore it in your writing. So these are characters who sort of stay with you, real life people, and then you adapt them to your book. I'm sure you do the same. We all, we cannibalize people as writers, that's for sure.
You're right. And maybe the good of some people with the bad of some other people, and all of that coming together in your head. And it's all getting mixed up, and you are able to create something completely unique and something which you would love to be yourself at times, maybe. So, those fascinating characters you are able to create. Uh, Happy to hear about these two ladies, and I'll try and read those books to uh, get to know them better. Uh, Kiran, another thing I had in my mind to ask you was you've been there, uh, you've done a lot of work. So, what's next? Like, I'm sure work will come and you'll keep writing. How's it? How does your day pan out? And what are you thinking now? Like, next 5 years, what do you want to achieve? I think you've achieved everything that you wish to achieve in India. So,
No,
there's more to come, lots more to come, I'm sure. But what is that one thing that you would really want to achieve, and how are you working towards it? It's basically for young authors. You're a mentor to a lot of them, and they would want to listen to you on some of these, basically to understand how they should be shaping their own careers.
so I'm the worst person to give that kind of advice because throughout my life, I've never had a plan. I've just jumped into things on impulse and jumped out and, started stuff and done stuff to the best of my ability. I think, very honestly, I will do something that excites me. Something. So if at a point I feel like writing books, I will continue writing books. If it comes to a point where books don't excite me anymore, I'll find something else to do. I don't plan out anything, which is a terrible thing to do. My husband keeps telling me, you have to plan, you have to know your journey, and you have to do this and have to do all that. And he's wonderfully focused. I'm not. I think it's a weakness of being creative that, you just seek excitement in what you're doing for the day. And, if I can get to my desk and the journey of my characters excites me enough, then I'm happy for the day if I've got my 2000 words down. But I do want to write books that last. I don't want books that will be bestseller for a week and then fall out of sight. I don't
Mm,
want books that will be not really be remembered after a point, that somebody reads it and forgets about it and can't even recall what the story is after a point. I want
sure.
when I post about recently I posted about my books from Westland that Westland shut down and
Right,
all our books are going
right,
to be pulped. Although the Reluctant Detectives 10 years old, I posted about it, and I had a blaze of comments saying we loved K Mehra. I'm going to go and reread it. That's the kind of stuff that gives me joy and
right,
happiness, that after all these years people still love the character and they remember the name of the character and they remember that she was funny and she whatever about her. So that is what drives me. That I mean, think about it. You can write hundreds of books. You can be as prolific as Trey Pratchett, and write books that went into, I think, I don't know. I've given up counting how many are there. Even just in the Discworld series, 46 or 47. No, I don't know. Or you can write one book like To Kill a Mockingbird or one The Great Gatsby, and
yeah,
still. So I want to be an author who's remembered after I pass away, not an author who has
wow,
been on best-selling lists and then forgotten as soon as she stops churning out the books.
super. So, very thoughtful. And actually, for youngsters, these are words of wisdom. They need to take it, they need to chew it, understand from it. Uh, Kiran, what are your views now with the changing dynamics in the publishing industry itself? And I'm not talking about the word that you mentioned, but so between trad authors as well as now vanity published authors or self-published authors, indies as we call them. Where are things going? How do you see them? Like you said, nowadays you don't even get very fat initial signing amounts, and once in a 6 month kind of a thing for royalty payments are there. While if you are a self-published author and with your kind of a branding and your kind of a name, don't you think you'll be making a lot more?
You could make a lot more, I'm sure. maybe I'm too lazy to venture into the self-publishing. I have dear friends who have gone into it, like IGLIV Wajid, and are doing brilliantly. And she has the kind of discipline to keep writing and to be at it. I need the prod of my editor, and I need the hand holding and the pampering that you get when your book has gone to a publishing house.
Right.
Also, there's a different discipline that is needed to be a self-published author, and I really admire them for that, because some of our best, most famous authors have been self-published first before they got picked up by publishing houses. Ashwin Sanghi, Amish Tripathi, uh,
Right.
Savi Sharma, and even Neil De Silva, who's into the horror space. They've all been self-published first before they got picked up. So there is a lot going for self-published authors, and there's a lot of talent out there, definitely. I don't know if it is not for me, never say never, but it's not something I've seriously explored so far.
Okay.
I think this is going to be an interesting space to watch out. We will see a lot of very good talent getting there first, rather than going the long route of approaching publishers, waiting for rejections, getting more and more dejected as, the rejections pile up. I'm sure we could all wallpaper our walls with the rejection letters.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, self-publishing seems to be, if I've got a good book here, I'm going to publish it. If it does well, somebody will pick me up. So that seems to
Okay.
be what the thought process is. Or I'm not happy with the kind of money that I'm getting being traditionally published, and I want more control over my book, and I want to keep the rights of my book. So I'm going to self-publish. So these are two extremes that I see. Also, there's good stuff being self-published, and there's absolute rubbish being self-published.
Sure. Sure.
I mean, that's for the readers to, do the quality control on that. So
Right.
there's nothing we
Right.
can say about it.
Right. So in India today, we have more than 300 books being published every day, every single day.
Every single
And these are big numbers, while we are nowhere near the US or other locations. But still, English writing itself has picked up. These are big moments for authors like us. And uh, I don't know how many readers are there, but at least every single reader today wants to become an author. That's a new journey we are seeing, and very welcome times, because if everyone would want to become an author, then obviously there are many more readers, because you have to read so much to be able to write even a single book.
No,
So
that's a misnomer. Let me tell you that. I have heard people who approach me and say, I want to write a book. And I say, who are your favorite authors? No, I don't read. So then don't think that people are readers. They want to be authors. So some of them don't want to read.
that's very surprising, because I don't think you'll be able to write if you've not been able to. And maybe we are different, and there's a new generation, young generation is completely different. The way I don't even understand them quite a few times. There's so much to learn from them, in fact, and so many new things happening, so much of tech enabled things happening. But at times it becomes difficult to catch on with their conversation also. Normal, when they're talking to kids talking, and you are not able to figure out as to what's happening around you. So, and uh, it's so easy for them. The conversation, they're talking maybe sometimes politics, sometimes, and very little of politics nowadays. I think our times, we used to talk a lot more uh, during our younger days about politics and about economy and about those things which mattered to the country. Nowadays, I think kids are more into many other things. Actually, I think the universe has expanded in a major way. So I sometimes feel it's so difficult unless you understand the kids of today. How would you, for example, if you are a YA author or you want to really write something for the kids, how do you read them? Would they even understand your language today? Or do they have the time to go through what you've written for them? Or they'll be churning out books for themselves. A lot of I know a girl who's just 17 and she's written a book and she's got published and she's doing pretty well. She's writing her another book. So maybe are they not better people to write for their own age or for kids younger to them? Uh, how difficult? for example, Madhuri was asking you, when is your next teenager book coming? So what are your thoughts on that really? Is it easy to now keep churning something for teenagers? Has the world completely... Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you now. Uh,
Okay.
Having said that, they are completely different a generation and things have changed. But you must remember the best books for children have always been written by adults. So you have Mark Twain, you have Roald Dahl, you have Enid
Yeah.
Blyton, you have J.K. Rowling. Of course, she's been cancelled right now. But you have her, you have uh, uh, The Hunger Games was written by, I forget who, Stephanie
Yeah.
Myers of The Twilight Zone. You have young adult Percy Jackson, Rick Riordan. You
Right.
have the best and the most popular fiction written for children, for young adults by adults. Young adults and teenagers can definitely write their own fiction. And I'm sure they'll do a great job as well because they're in that space right now. But I would say it all depends on the kind of writing and the kind of if you look at the stories that are popular with young adults and with children, there's a form of escapism, or there's a kind of a dystopia. There is something that is not within this world that gets popular. So you have a Hogwarts, or you have a you have the Hunger Games, the games and the entire uh, world where you have to fight for food or whatever for your community, that kind of a dystopia. So something that appeals to uh, a sense of survival, a sense of belonging, a sense of whatever the key things that a teenage or a young child is feeling, if that is touched, I think that story will appeal to them. And that's what the best authors have always done. So you have Huckleberry Finn, which is about a child
Sure.
wanting to run away from home. I mean, every child
Right.
wants to do that. Uh,
Right.
and you have we had Enid Blyton back in our times, and back in our times we didn't have anything called young adult. We just had like kids books, and then you went straight into Irving Wallace, and you were like, oh
Yeah.
wow, this is life. So there were no boundaries, and there was no adults standing over your shoulder and saying this is age appropriate, it's not age appropriate. Bacha read karo, just stay out of our hair. So I read Jaws when I was 9, and Irving Wallace, Seven Sins or Seven something, when I was around that age, and completely inappropriate. And I'd come home with my father from his library. It was lying there, I read it. So there was no kind of distinction. So now this entire young adult thing has me very confused, to be honest.
I
I've
know. I
totally
know.
carbon dated myself, I think.
Yeah.
So
That's where the humor is coming from.
yeah, the kids will write their stories, but the adults will also write their stories. I think if you appeal to something that is very intrinsic to a child or a young teenager, something that threatens them, something that worries them, those stories will appeal, regardless of
Right.
who writes them.
Sure. So during the times of basically, I think so. If you're talking about 80s, early 80s, or maybe the late 70s, so we did not have those television sets or the telephones or even the normal black telephone. Most of the houses at that point in time did not have, and our world was different. Like we used to actually go out and play with friends, and we used to do a lot more with friends. We used to play outdoor games and indoor games, and life was not like you had at least 20 kids to go out to, and so much fun. While today, all those 20 kids are connected, but only on mobile, and they're playing on their mobiles. So obviously, there is a difference. Uh, Recently, what I did was I started thinking I was in a joint family. So initially, during my early days, when I was a four-year old or a 5-year old, and joint families, so there is a kid of 1-year old also, and there is a kid of 14-year old also. Together, 8, 9 kids, and your entire livelihood, the way you live, and your parents and everybody, and so many guests coming over. So it was a very different world we have. While today it's all singular families, one kid, so that kind of families. And I started thinking really as to how we used to live and what was the kind of stuff we used to think about that point in time, and the stories we used to hear, or the stories we created, or we used to hear stories and our parents used to narrate, or guests coming in would narrate. So all of that I have now compiled into kind of a compendium of short stories. So I'm thinking it will be coming out sometime in May. It would be about 22, 23 short stories by a kid for kids. So I have taken myself exactly to my 5-year-old self, thought on those lines about those days, and tried to recreate that atmosphere, that environment for everyone.
How
So
lovely.
that is something, yeah, I wished, and it was a long thought. Many, many years back, I thought I should write something like this. So while I have published 4 novels in a series, it's a thriller and mystery series. The first of them is basically ritualistic murder, being a thriller, out and out thriller. So the first chapter itself, you have everything going for the protagonist. Nothing going actually for the protagonist, everything going for the antagonist. And thereafter, you get into the other 3 books, which are pure mysteries, very, very deep mysteries, murder mysteries, crime. And from there, and having heard a lot of speakers like Elana Johnson, others, talk about not shifting from one to the other genre. They don't do that. They do it using their pen names and all. But in India, I think most of us are that way, very creative, and we want to get into other streams of work also. So working on very, very different conceptual stories and novels about the emergency days, social uh, climate during the emergency, and a lot of very, very different stuff. So because we all look up to you and to the work that you've already done, the name you've already created. Uh, how do you, uh, what is that one thought you would want to leave with authors who've just come in, maybe just last 2 years, 3 years, and they are trying to get their sunshine, they're trying to get a few readers who like their books. What is that one thought you would want to leave for them?
That's a tough one. One thought, I would just say focus on the craft. Don't look for the short-term glories. Don't look for the #1 bestseller tag. Don't chase social media mentions. Don't chase all that. Just focus on the craft. And that should be your thing. Put in your hours of work every single day. Don't call yourself oh God, I'm going on and on. But I say put in the riyaz, put in the work,
Ah, right.
write every single day. You won't expect a athlete not to do his practice every single day. You won't expect a musician not to do their riyaz every single day. You can't dare call yourself a writer if you write only when the muse hits you and you feel like writing. No, you sit every single day and you write, whether it is 500 words or 5,000. If you call yourself a writer and you want to be a writer, you sit down and you write. And that is a non-negotiable. So just focus on the craft and everything hopefully should fall in place.
And how should really indies take it forward? They also need to do something about the marketing and sales side, because they don't have publishers managing it for them. So how should they really? How do you, for example, how is a typical Kiran Manral day?
Very confused, a bit boring. But how should the indies manage their marketing and their publicity? There's a lot of resources out there on the internet, and there's a lot you can do. You can start with newsletters. You can start with a mailing list. You can start your blog where you can update people. You have social media today these days. Start your YouTube channel. Do what you're doing right now, which is like a lovely initiative of having conversations with other authors and building goodwill for yourself. These are all things that you do because you need to sort of reach out to the community and have the community support you. It's not going to be just readers, it's also going to be other authors. But also reach out to your readers, the few readers. Start with grabbing hold and catching all your friends and relatives by their collars and saying like, talk about my book. And you can do that with friends and relatives when you don't have readers, and hopefully the word will spread. And
Right.
something which has been very difficult for me, but after much prodding and pushing by my husband, who's very persistent, is talk about yourself. I think I think it's a feeling that I have to talk about your work is it's very difficult for me, and I found it very embarrassing to keep posting about my books and myself. And then after a point, I realized that if I don't advocate my books, who is going to do that?
You're
It's you
right.
who has to talk about your books and your work. And if somebody feels that it's too much, they're free to not follow you or not to see your post or to unfriend you or to block you or whatever they choose to do. But you owe that to your books and you owe that to your work to promote it as much as you can. And there is this thinking that if you're attached to a publishing house, the publishers will do a lot for you. They do the limit that they can, but you must remember they have so many authors,
Yeah. Yeah.
and their focus is generally on there is a hierarchy within authors also, so their
Right.
focus is
Right.
generally on the titles they feel are from the bigger authors, the ones more likely to be bestsellers and to do well or get which are controversial, or the books by celebrities. So
Hmm.
you have to do your own pushing. They will do their fair bit, but they have only only so much bandwidth and so much resources, and they will do their best. There are excellent publicists, and my dear publicist from Harper, Sagari, is right here. She's done a wonderful job with Kitty Party Murder. They can
Okay.
do only so much, but they have so much to do with so many authors. So you can't expect them to do everything. You have to pull your fair share. For independents, that's
Sure.
all the more double the task, because they have to do everything
Right.
themselves. There are wonderful
Right.
resources on the net. There's Canva. There's so many design tools to set up your websites. Just go ahead and do it. Do everything that you can. I made my website yet. I'm terribly lazy for an author, but I
But
advocate
you're a
everybody.
website editor. I read somewhere you are also a website editor.
Yes, I was the editor at a website called Wedding Sutra. I was the ideas editor at She the People. I've done lots of editing for
Okay.
websites. I
But you've
supplied
not
content.
built your own.
No, I'm not with my own. My thing is, if anybody wants to find me, they can just do a Google search. It's okay.
Right. Right. And you have your wiki page and everything, so it's all up and
That some very kind souls who were doing updating the lists of Indian women authors did that. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had that too. So there was this entire mission of very dedicated souls who put together this plan to put Indian women novelists up there, because many of us were not there. And that's how I
okay.
came on Wikipedia.
Sure. But lovely, isn't it? Uh, I'm really, today it's been very special, a lot of learning to take away from this video. And I'm going to put it up on YouTube and everywhere, all the media. I'll share the link with you, Kiran. It's been lovely talking to you. I guess it's a Friday evening and people are waiting at your home, at my home, everywhere else to dive into the weekend atmosphere. So yeah, and for the readers out there, Kiran is also just a, she's on Insta, she's on Twitter, she's everywhere. You can write to her, you can message her, PM her, DM her. So all of that is nowadays, so many channels are available to be able to communicate directly with the author. Uh, Similar to her, I am also available everywhere. So it's for you to find us. We are definitely trying to find you guys there, the real readers. Yeah, and all of this effort is to help good literature find its true readers. So this initiative I've taken, and I'm talking to some of the best authors, it's taking away an hour of their time, so that readers and young authors actually learn from their craft, learn from what they think. It's the thinking that's made you. So the thinking behind the lady uh, sitting in front of me. So we really wanted to understand you, Kiran, and it's been pleasure completely. Had a lot to learn. Thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I had a great time. I hope I was I had some sense to convey, and it adds some value to your evening. And thank you so much, everyone, for listening. Thank you, Kinshuk, for inviting me. I had a great time chatting. Thanks so much.
Thanks a ton, Kiran. It's lovely talking to you. We'll connect again.
Definitely.
Take care. Good night. Have a great weekend.
Good night, and all the best with your book, the new one.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Same to you. Thanks. Bye.